you please start? There it is. Thank you. Seeing we have a quorum, I am calling this meeting to order. And would ask that all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And I want to note that Commissioner Muchler will be here shortly. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Present.
Aaron Collins.
Present.
Liz Darrow.
Present.
Joe Ellenboss. Lindsey Graham Ellenboss. Present. Colin Faltenfeld.
Present.
Brad Kelly.
Here.
Maya Morales.
Present.
John Muchler. Hannah Ordos. Present. Joel Pitts Jordan.
Present.
Andrew Redding. Hallway. Mr. Greenstrom. Here. Rod Stump.
Here.
Jennifer Wright.
Here. Thank you. And I believe we have the Blaine Mary Lou Stewart here. Would you like to say a few words? Hi.
Sorry, this is not my show, but I just want to welcome you all to Blaine and thank you for coming to Blaine so that the residents of Blaine can participate. I'm just here, as I hope all of us are, to learn more about this and hear the discussion. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. Let's see. It's a packed room here tonight. I want to give our commissioners time to find their seats. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay, at this time, I want to ask for Staff Attorney Quistra to give us some info, please.
Chairperson, so I just wanted to let you all know that the county has received a number of complaints concerning alleged unprofessional conduct by members of this commission, both during the course of these meetings and after these meetings. I just wanted to alert everybody here to that fact. The county, through HR, has a process for investigating complaints like this. That process is underway. It's going on now. We don't have any findings or anything concluded from that process. I'm not going to be commenting about the allegations themselves, given that that process is still going on. But I did want to take the opportunity to alert you all to that and just remind you to conduct yourselves with the utmost professionality at these meetings. Obviously, these are issues that are discussed that all of you care deeply about, or you wouldn't have sought to serve on this commission in the first place. But we can all strive to be professional interactions with each other, with staff, and with the public. If there are complaints of behavior that anyone here wishes to make, I wanted to let you know that those can be done through me, through my office, or directly through HR, and then they want to go the same process as any other complaint. And to the end of helping educate all of you, our office will be sending around some codes of conduct and other policies the county has developed concerning conduct, just as a refresher and something to report.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, in my role as chair, I want to encourage all commissioners to take seriously the oath of office that we took, particularly the general standards of professionalism that are imposed on us by the Whatcom County Code of Ethics, which is code section 2.104.020. And the expectation is that as an elected body that we'll strive to hold ourselves to the highest standards of professionalism, which all elected officials should do, including in our interactions with each other, with the staff assigned to this work, and with the public. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the agenda, approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to propose an amendment, and that is to move item Item five, move the. Let's see. Sector. Yeah, move discussion of amendment proposal 10 until after the executive branch discussion.
Do we have a second for that motion?
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, for clarity, we're looking at item number 2 under old business on the agenda number 5, moving that until after we have an opportunity to hear from the executive. Seeing no discussion, is there any objection to approving that by consent? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that, okay,
I'd also like to make a motion to amend the agenda and move in item 5, amendment proposal 11 to our next meeting on the 27th. I'd like to actually push that out by one more and provide amended language based on what our discussion is today on the other amendment that Commissioner Redding brought. I think that might be more efficient for us.
I'll second that.
thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, for clarity, that motion is to move amendment proposal number 11, which is listed under old business, to the March 27th meeting. And during that meeting, we'll be discussing elections and hearing from the auditor. Is there any objection to approving that by consent? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
I just have one
Please go ahead.
question. What other proposals does it show we're gonna be talking on the 27th? Because I know that we have the auditor and deputy executive, and so want to make sure that we have enough time to listen to them.
In our list of proposed amendments, I don't see anything listed for the 27th.
Okay.
Right now. These things can always change. All in favor of moving amendment proposal 11 to the March 27th meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Change is made.
Madam Chair, who's the name?
Commissioner Stump.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Seeing no further amendments, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Maybe a second.
Second.
Okay. Are there any opposed to approving by consent? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. And any opposed? Commissioner Elmas, can you hear okay? Me? Oh, I'm talking to Commissioner Elmas.
An apology to the group here. I'm not hearing things the best, so
Okay,
I asked staff if there's some way they can comply with an AED. And I will be discussing the results of my poor hearing, and I'm trying to adjust to this thing, but now everything I'm hearing is electronic and it's not people. So I'm gonna try maybe half and half, and if I've got a problem, we'll work around it.
okay,
I don't like to pretend like I'm a weakling. And that's kind of how you end up feeling when you can't hear, and especially when you find out you missed the whole concept of what was being discussed.
understood.
So we're working to resolve. Thanks for asking.
Sure. And a reminder to commissioners, because I forget to, it's much easier for folks who are listening from home as well if we speak up. Okay. So let's see, at this time, we're gonna move on to public comment. Members of the public are welcome to address the commission on topics related to the Whatcom County Charter in person or via Zoom. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. If you have a comment on one of the agenda items that will be discussed in depth today, we ask that you hold your comments until that agenda item. These include the following proposed charter amendments. Number 6, to make the prosecuting attorney a nonpartisan office. Number 12, to replace the salary commission and establish a fixed schedule of elected salaries. And number 13 has now been moved, so we won't be discussing that one. Numbers are.
Yes, I'm just noticing we have a number of people trying to get in. I don't know if we have seats or if we could make like another row in front,
It
but
seems
anyway,
we
I'm
have
just
a
not
booth.
sure.
Is there, is that a thing? So the numbers are. Oh, I have a whole separate thing here. So a lot of times they're not in sync. Whole separate thing. So there's actually number 6. Number 10. Yeah, I'm number 11. I don't know why the numbers are all. Okay, good. So we'll start with general comments on topics not related to those I just reviewed. And sorry, correction on those numbers. It's actually amendments number 6, like I said, and amendment number 10. So if you have anything on those, are there any in-person commenters who signed up to speak to general items not listed?
We'll go to first to Cindy Ricky.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna hold on to the table. I apologize for this, but I did ask for the parameters of your meeting, your rules. And I believe this gentleman is a lawyer and told me I was gonna just hand them to you before. Because one of them I'm very blessed to offer you if you have, and we're having a great event coming up. So I'm getting a little organized because he suggested I don't do that, that I just leave them because maybe you don't want them. But anyway, and I have to say this, I've interfaced and looked at all of you. Would never be a person not to say what I mean what I say, and try to not say it, but I would say it to your face. I was never brought up that way. So I don't know who called about what. I don't understand any of this, because I felt these meetings actually were very like being more in the community, because there was a little extra chit chat and people come from where they're at. You're all different value systems. So I'm just gonna say, to get it on record, I've been here twice saying at the whole meeting, and personally, what disturbs me, somebody would call and say something instead of coming up and saying it to your face. I don't know. But first of all, 9301 is inviting you, if you have any members of your family, there's 15 of them here. We're having a great event for the Vietnam War Veterans Day, and that's gonna be March 29th. So there's 15, if anyone, I'm told to leave them on the table. The next thing I have for you is why I understood this, even about the flag, you can't, I was brought up, and I was in my 30s a card-carrying feminist. My ideation was very different. I lived in Connecticut, so I'm not even gonna go where I was, but something radically happened to me, like Sharon Hayden, who I supported for the election in this state in my 40s. So I learned to use the Bible and the Constitution for how I made my systems. This is something I wrote 25 years ago, and it is about how I see what's happened in this nation. And I just asked a question because, of course, you're not going to know why we would be so passionate about our flag. I've studied the Constitution and the Federalist Papers. Hopefully, this is a great book if you can get your hands on it, Doris Smith. So, of course, you're going to come from the place you're at. We also have great pages. If you need more things for your evaluative process on the legislation, we have student guides, we have what our forefounders said, and I also brought for all of you, if you'd like it looked in the history of the flag. And the oath under God, we all have different God. I don't serve the same God as the gentleman that we know that. We've had our conversation, but I honor that in America. I've been to the Sikh temple, but we have very different value systems. But when I was on the mission field and an evangelist, I was with Arab World Ministries before 9/11, but I respect you. So I'm gonna leave this. This is how I see America, and that was in the Connecticut newspaper. I used to write for that. So these are my friends, all different colors. That's a pastor who actually buried my mother. I love this man. I so respect him. Kamal, out of all the people I know standing for our military, the time you came into the council and stood for our Second Amendment rights, I thank you, because they're to protect people, not to hurt them. If anyone would like to know any information about the flag, because I know that's a real controversial, this flag here, don't tread on me. But actually that flag, you will see here why the rattlesnake symbol, along with trees and stars, was brought up in colonial days. So I thank you,
Thank
and
you, Cindy.
I'm all for you. I was having like an okay time
even with the cookies. So I don't know
Thank you.
about what. Great Washington Monument, and I'm
Okay.
leaving, and on the top of that is, he stood strong. I
Thank
walked
you,
by it many
Cindy,
times.
appreciate it.
And the Vietnam Memorial, I'm sorry, but I
Are there-
wasn't allowed to give them to you.
Are there any others
Toodaloo.
wishing to speak in person?
We have Eric Warden.
Can you help me? I brought visual aid and my helper's gonna spin a whole for me. So here's a map of Whatcom County showing districts in a scenario of the future that I think realistically could happen if we don't change the district. Blue means Democrat or liberal, red is a Republican or conservative. Right now, I work in with data and databases and data analysis. So I looked at election data, and I'll say some things that probably a lot of you already know, but let's review. In District 3, in recent past elections, the voters here voted for John Scanlon. They voted for Stop Paul. They voted for Bob Ferguson, and they voted for Kamala Harris. And Tyler Bird, in his election, he won by a narrow margin. So in the next election coming up in November, there's a fair chance that District 3 could flip to Liberal. Similar thing in District 5. Those election results were all the same over there, and also by a fair margin. Ben Ellenboss is a popular candidate, so he probably will keep that seat. His term limit is in 7 years. After that, the district could very well flip to Liberal if things don't change. And this result on the council, if that were to happen, would be quite unfair. Even if you get rid of the 2 at-large seats, it would still really be unfair with only a single conservative on there, because proportionally, the whole district, the whole county as a whole, is about 40% conservative voters. If you look at in most elections, it usually breaks down 60-40. 40% of the people county-wide, including all the Republicans in Bellingham, add up to 40%. So I'd like to suggest once again, I'm here with Fair Vote Washington and my associate Kit Millman also. This solution to this problem really it affects conservatives, but everyone here cares about it. Everyone here has integrity, and we all want good governance. And the solution is a proportional representation system that uses ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is designed to create, this is disproportional. Ranked choice voting creates a elected body that matches what the voters actually want. And since I think everyone here wants that result, I would ask you to start working together to make that happen.
Can you show that to everyone?
Oh.
So you're standing in front of us.
You need to disappear, she's saying. Did she ever say that to you?
Great, thank you all.
Is that one of the infractions of my?
I've got a gavel here. I'm not afraid to use it. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Eric Ritchie, I'm the Whatcom County Prosecutor, and I just wanted to address one thing that you've already talked about here in this commission. And it's about the resolution to hire an attorney to investigate and settlement involving the Public Works Department. And I wanted to let you know, I'm not asking for anything. I just want to let you all know what's going on with that, just to correct some of the record. So there's already been a prior investigation done by the County Council. The County Council asked Ben Ellenboss, Todd, thank you, Todd Donovan and Barry Buchanan to work on this, and they did. They did an investigation, and the settlement that was in question was not managed by the prosecutor's office at all. This is something that was managed by the risk pool. I thought y'all needed to know that. So when the risk pool gets involved in taking care of an insurance claim, it's essentially like an insurance company, something that you all may be familiar with. For instance, if you get into a car accident and you think that the other party's at fault, that your insurance company might not agree with you and they might pay out. That might make you unhappy, but yet that's what they do. They make the decision. You don't get to make the decision. So it's just like that with the risk pool. It's just like that with the county council. They did not have an opportunity to make a decision on this. So the county councils looked at this. They have an opportunity to fix any of the issues by fixing the county code. The charter does not need to be changed to fix that county code. I just wanted you all to know that. The bottom line is that there really is no reason to hire an attorney to investigate, and that's the end.
Thank you.
Rosemary Van Beek.
Y'all know I didn't complain, because if I have something to say, it's gonna be said right here. Because I hate politics. That is my first thing. I wrote all this before a lot of this other stuff came out. I don't like politicians that'll tell me what think I want to hear, and then their actions are different. Last meeting, I watched the proposed signature requirement change for the charter review, which might be good for the public, except I did notice that there was a change in the agenda, and the ranked choice voting was no longer on the agenda. That was on there 2 weeks ago, two meetings ago, I think, and then it disappeared. So I foresee that the first thing that will come out through this new voting, I'm sorry, I get nervous talking. First thing I see that will come out for this will be that there will be the citizens' proposal to get that changed through an addendum or however y'all do it for the charter writing. And I have a feeling the county council will let it go through even different than they didn't let the children's levy go through. We didn't get a chance to vote on that initiative. And that kind of was disgusting to me, but that's me. Let's see. The cost of the action, if passed to the taxing voters, is pretty large because, as I told y'all before, the program that was done in Pierce County was $6 million for the program. And that's a good bit of the cost for the taxpayers. Okay. The next thing on the agenda today is the salaries for several positions. So one being the county council. And I do know a few of you on this committee are running for that office. And I just don't feel comfortable watching you vote on your own salaries if you happen to win. And this next one will be for the next meeting because it's on the positions, the county positions that I'm trying to do. This year, I am renting my home from the county and state for $475 a month, for a total of $567 in taxes. And I'm not here to make it a voice for me totally. I'm just trying to be a voice for the working people in this county that get up every day, go to work, come home, raise their families, try and do their sports and everything they're trying to do. So they don't have time to come up here and the county council and other things to try and be a voice. And in a few weeks, a lot of them are going to get their new house payments with the new taxes and insurance rates. And there's going to be some complaining when their house payments go up $100, $200, $300 a month. And it's going to be some people disgusted about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. I saw Mr. Westerfield's
I did not see a
hand.
sign up sheet, so may I speak?
Sure, please go ahead.
Going back nearly a year, I was absolutely in favor of this process of moving these meetings from place to place, but this isn't working. Tonight there's no microphone. Last meeting there was one microphone. And as much as I like the idea, it's not working. We can't hear you. There's not room for the people who want to be here. It's just not working. I would suggest that other than any commitments you've already made to any locations, that we move back, you move this back to the county council chambers, where there's at least enough microphones so we can hear most of you most of the time. My suggestion, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Westerfield. Is that everyone in person? Are there any commenters online? On Zoom? Oh.
Hi there, I'm Misty Flowers, and I want to actually reiterate what he just said. I've been coming to these meetings. I can hear you guys okay in the room. I have really good hearing, but people online can't hear you. I've been told that every single time what's going on in the meetings. They can't hear you guys at all. So, seeing how people are sitting out there leaning in, hoping to hear something or see something at some point, maybe we can find a better solution for what's happening right now, because this is really frustrating for those of us that are trying to engage with you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Misty. And there's no one registered online. Okay. So now we're gonna move on to the approval of the minutes from February 27th. Are there questions or comments related to the February 27th meeting minutes? Commissioner Ellenboss.
The February 27th?
Wait a minute.
Sorry,
Yeah, the
so
last,
that's not last meeting.
it was, believe it or not. This is March 13th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
In the minutes, as it's listed under proposed amendment 13, what is listed is not what transpired, and it should be stricken or altered. Request permission to define what I'm saying.
Yes, please.
If one reads this, it says that the motion was to modify the number of signatures for putting a charter amendment proposal on the ballot. We were attempting to follow what was on the agenda, and that was a two-pronged item. One, to change the benchmark election from gubernatorial to county exec. The other was to fill in a blank as far as the percentage, allowing the body to select that percentage. There was discussion about a whole series of numbers, but when this person opened his mouth and said, well, Madam Chair, you do have the option to divide that question or split that question or bifurcate it, whichever word, they all go back to the division process. And the reason I'm wearing these things is because while I couldn't hear specifically what was said, I thought what you said was something to the effect of, with the will of the body, we will divide the question. And you then asked for a motion, and Andrew made the motion to approve the portion of his proposed amendment that indicated we were changing the election from gubernatorial to county executive. That's what I heard, and that's what I voted on, and voted aye in favor of that. And my vote would be that way again as we continue that process, because I think that is a reasonable approach to have them all have the same benchmark election. But in my case, that decision is only half made, as I would think it would be for every member of this body, because there was no statement in that motion as to what the percentage was going to be in that blank. The presumption was the question was divided. So until that issue is decided, this issue is not decided. And I would propose that there are several solutions, Madam Chair. And this should be in everybody's thinking when they decide whether or not to strike this or to correct it. And that is, one, we could hold the secondary portion of the election. I mean, the other portion of the motion, you went away from it because we were halfway through it, and then we went into another order of business, that being the presentation by the council members. But we could come back to that issue to complete it and discuss the percentage and render a decision on the percentage. That's one result. The other would be to refer this to committee and allow a committee to work on this so that it comes back to us in a proposal advised by the body, and it becomes a motion before us to deal with the issue and render a decision on it. The other alternative is, as Robert's Rules of Order states, any action undertaken outside of your rules, and of course our rule is adopted by this body, proposed by this body, and approved in one of those early meetings when I had to leave early. I don't disagree with the procedure, and that is that you submit your proposed amendment to the body in a timely manner. It then goes through the process and goes on our agenda for review at the appropriate time. So absent that happening, what ends up happening, if this in fact is the final vote on this, is out of order, and according to Roberts, anything done outside of the rules that the body operates under is null and void. So whether it's in here or not, if you leave it in the minutes as it is null and void, and there's no way you can change that. So my proposal is up to, I will leave it in your hands, as to how we deal with it. If you say that we are going to continue this particular item and deal with the other part of it, either on today's agenda or some future agenda, then that needs to be noted. But there was no motion to modify the required number of signatures for putting a charter amendment proposed by the public on the ballot from 15%. The 15% was not discussed, it was not part of the motion.
Understood, and if I may, for the sake of time, my memory, and correct me if no one else remembers this, is that we brought that up at the time that this meeting happened, and because the 15% is not a change from the 15%, it was a single issue, and I think you discussed this quite eloquently at the last meeting as well. The single issue that we were voting on was to link it to the county executive election instead of the gubernatorial election. At that time, it was my understanding that that pleased the body and no further motion was made, and so it wouldn't be my desire as chair to go back over this issue. The 15% remained 15%, and the single issue that was changed was the election that the number of signatures is linked to. So that would be my response. Happy to entertain brief discussion otherwise.
Am I allowed to briefly discuss?
We don't have a motion on the floor, but I think the question has been asked.
Well, if that's the interpretation you have, then I would propose, based on the tape, which is quite clear, that didn't transpire in that manner. Okay? And I listened to it very carefully this afternoon, word for word. Then I would move that this particular motion was out of order in as much as it did not cover, there was no statement in the presentation of the motion to do anything other than one half of what was on our agenda. Because what was on our agenda was a two-pronged approach, and we only took a single portion of that. So to indicate, all this could indicate is that we rendered a decision on one half of the motion.
Do we have a second on that motion?
A second.
Commissioner Morales?
Yeah, I apologize. I may have had a funny face on because I was trying to figure out for a while what you were proposing, but I think I figured it out. It was also my understanding that there was a suggestion that you made, or maybe Commissioner Muchler made, someone made a suggestion to separate these, bifurcate them. And I think we had discussion on that and decided that ultimately what we were voting on was just basing the percentage on a different office and not changing the percentage itself. That was certainly my understanding of my vote. And I'm seeing quizzical looks over here as well. Are you following what this is about? Okay, just making sure. So I would say that if there is a discrepancy, it would be my preference that maybe our staff take a look at that tape again and decide whether the minutes might need to be revised. But I think it'd be good to hear from others what they understood they were voting on. I felt clear at the time.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Redding?
I'm wondering if we could refer this to Kellen to actually review the tape and see what happened and get a third party looking at that.
I did have the opportunity to review the tape. My understanding was, essentially since Commissioner Morales, what was proposed was simply changing the benchmark election from the governor's election to the county executive, that there was no change to the percentage being proposed, and that the body voted on that proposal alone, separately from the question of whether or not to change the percentage. I think the body could take up the issue of whether to change the percentage by moving to amend something previously adopted and change the proposal. Or a commissioner could bring their own separate proposal to amend the percentage and amend that part of the charter as well. But my understanding from reviewing the recording, and what I understood at the time, was that the body was voting on just the change to the benchmark election.
Well, let's ask the council then, what is the rule as it relates to this? The only thing before us is a written amendment which is on our agenda, proposed amendment which is on our agenda. And that included two provisions. One, the benchmark election, and two, a marking out of the percentage and leaving a blank. And that blank needs to be decided on. You cannot, just because after Andrew moved, that we changed the benchmark election. There was, during the course of that, non-germane discussion by the body about the percentages. But that was not part of this motion. And it's very simple to read. That motion is only about 7 or 8 words that he made, and that's what we were discussing. There was a motion, his motion, and a second. And there was no talk about a substitute, none of those things. So the only thing before us was 1/2 of the proposed amendment. Now, if what you're saying is correct, then the chair was out of order to accept that motion, because it was not the motion that was on our agenda. The agenda that we just, at the beginning of the meeting, approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellenboss. So reading from the agenda from February 27th, Amendment Proposal 13 by Commissioner Redding, modify signature requirements for charter review amendments from the public, which is what we did. So I don't see anything that we approved being.
But it referred us to an exhibit, which was the precise wording of Andrew's proposed amendment.
Commissioner Redding?
Yeah, I would like to suggest that in the interest of respecting the agenda and everybody who's come here and so forth, that we not get into an interminable discussion about procedure at this point. And as our attorney has pointed out, there are ways we can come back to this through another agenda, and that would be a much more efficient use of our time. And I'm fully willing to do that. But I don't think, given that the attorney has looked it over and agrees that the thing was done properly last time, the proper way forward then would be to come back with another proposal.
Okay, Commissioner Collins?
Yeah, my memory of that vote is, this is what we were voting on, but I do remember being a little confused about it and leading up to that, and being, there was a lot of back and forth. And while I don't want us to get into the habit of, you know, undoing of votes, I also, I take your statement in good faith, and I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, they voted on something that wasn't what they intended. So I also would support you know, having another discussion later and going back and attempting to amend this. I don't think it was procedurally incorrect, but I don't want anybody having been have a vote on the record that isn't what they thought they were.
Okay, so the motion we have on the table is that proposed amendment 13 was out of order because there were 2 prongs on the agenda and we didn't vote on both. That's the motion as I understand it. Would you say that's correct?
That states the issue.
Okay, great. Would you please call the roll?
Could you clarify the second?
Yeah, what are we?
Oh, the second was Commissioner Stump.
And can-
The motion is to rule for the vote on proposed amendment 13 out of order from the February 27th meeting, because there were 2 prongs on the agenda and we didn't vote on both. And from what I understand from the discussion is that if we do that, then that whole item is stricken from, it's like it never happened. Is that what you're saying?
That's the question. So Joe, is that based on, is it Robert's rules? Is something we can look at? Because I'm just not familiar with
Yeah, well, the
The
division,
rules behind it, I guess.
Commissioner, answer that question.
Sure.
If you were to go to Roberts, as it talks about division, it probably would have said Ellenboss should have kept his mouth shut. Because as it turns out, this becomes a very difficult issue to split. There are certain items that should not be divided. And the reason is quite simple. This two-pronged situation is, many of us would have voted for county exec race if the percentage was listed as 25% per se, okay? So which do you do first? You don't want to really render a decision on the percentage before you know which election it's going to be, because if the majority was not willing to change it to a county executive's race, you could be creating a higher percentage of the gubernatorial race, which takes it even more out of line. And so that's why had we done it appropriately, which you may very well have done if I'd have kept my mouth shut, then we would not be where we are. But we do have that fact that is irrefutable, that the motion was only for a portion of it. And that's why I'm bringing this point forward.
Commissioner Mutchler?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm looking at the minutes regarding proposed amendment 13, and there's just one issue on there, which is what I understood to be was the benchmark change. There is no mention of percentage. So I'm not sure what we're correcting here. I've been trying to follow this. I'm lost because the minutes seem fine to me, but I'm not sure what the commissioner is suggesting that we were supposed to vote on the percentage.
The proposal is that there were two prongs on the agenda.
Right.
An editorial note that might be in the packet. On the agenda, there are not, and that we didn't vote on both.
The motion, I'm assuming, was for the one item, for the benchmark, which is perfectly fine regardless of the agenda. And we voted on the one item, the benchmark. So I'm not sure what we're trying to undo here.
So John, it's simply stated, if our rules are that we bring forth motions related to items that we have previously approved and they work their way onto our agenda, then the only motion that you can make is the motion related to that agenda item, which in this particular case covers both of those. Andrew's motion was only for the benchmark election. And so that's only a portion of it. In order to complete it, in order to make it in order, there has to be a secondary consideration of what that percentage needs to be, because that decision was not made and it was part of what was on our agenda.
The percentage is listed. It's the same percentage. You have the benchmark change. You also have the percentage, 15 is going to be 15. So both items are there because an amendment can be made to the motion to change a percentage. In essence, it was made to keep it the same.
Okay,
So I don't see
we
the
are at
deficiency
time
here.
on this item. I see Commissioner Ordos, and then we're gonna call the vote.
So what I would say in response to that, if you went back to the last agenda and you read the, what Commissioner Redding had put in there, it didn't have a percentage. It was striked out. It was in red with the intention of having a discussion about both. So you would have had to look back at the last meeting, not the one that's in your hand today, but our packet from the last meeting. And then you would see that.
Can I?
Very briefly.
We are really,
past time.
yeah, way past time on this. I just want to say, it sounds like we have different understandings of what occurred. And to me, it was very clear in the meeting that although we did discuss the possibility of bifurcating that, we did not vote to bifurcate that. And so what we voted on was what Commissioner Redding proposed, which was to change the benchmark. That's my understanding. That's our attorney's understanding. So I think we have to take this vote and decide whether to toss it out or not, and then proceed with the agenda.
Okay. Staff, could you call the roll, please?
Madam Chair, would you please state?
Yes.
so that
Yeah,
everyone
we have a
knows?
motion to rule the proposed amendment 13 vote out of order because there were two prongs on the agenda and we didn't vote on them both.
Aaron Collins.
No.
Liz Darrow.
No.
Joe Ellenboss.
Yes.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss. Yes. Colton Collins Bell.
Abstain?
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales,
No.
John Mutchler,
No.
Hannah Ordos,
Yes.
Joel Fitzjordan,
No.
Andrew Redding,
No.
Jessica Ringstra,
No.
Brad Stump,
Yes.
Jennifer Wright,
Abstain.
Doug Chadwick,
Abstain.
seven no's, 5 yeses, and 3 abstentions.
Yes, so that's what I counted to. That motion fails, and we are moving on to old business. Items that were approved at the previous meeting for discussion. As previously mentioned, we'll hear public comments specific to each proposed amendment prior to that discussion. So, yes, we did.
The minutes, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, thank you. Having said all that, thank you for your patience. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll second.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any opposed to approving by consent? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
Okay, we have 2 nays and 1 abstention, 3 nays and 1 abstention, 11 ayes.
as well.
Okay,
Yeah, we have to get names.
we're gonna have, yeah, would you please? Thank you.
Luke Darrow,
Yes,
Joe Ellenboss,
No.
Lindsay Ellenboss, no. Colton Colton,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
No.
Maya Morales,
Yes.
John Mutchler,
Yes.
Hannah Ordos,
No.
Joel Fitzjordan,
Yes.
Andrew Redding,
Yes.
Jessica Ringstra,
Yes.
Brad Stump,
No.
Jennifer Wright,
Yes.
Doug Chadwick,
Abstain.
Amy Collins,
Yes.
and that passes 9 yes, 5 no, and 1 abstention. Okay, now we'll move on to old business. First up for consideration is Commissioner Mutchler's amendment proposal number 6, making the Office of Prosecuting Attorney nonpartisan. Do we have any public comment on this issue?
Sure, I'll comment on it quickly. So this is my suggestion originally, and I don't want to push this hard. I recognize we have some different politics within this room and some considerations that we all want for. It just suggests to you all that if you think that it's important to keep this one office partisan, if that's important for any reason, then you should consider maybe all the offices partisan. That's something that, I mean, right now, you're leaving just the prosecutor as a partisan office and suggesting that we should be, we should somehow be beholden to a political party in our role, which I suggest to you is absolutely contrary to what the role of the prosecutor is. But if that's what you want to do, if you want to leave this one office partisan, then why don't you take the other offices that actually do work that involve policy and make them partisan too? I mean, without it, it's somewhat of a hypocrisy. Now, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any further public comment? No? Okay. Let's see, Commissioner Mutchler, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure. You know, I was thinking when I was mayor of Ferndale, I hired our chief of police. I never once asked him his politics. I, every year, renewed the contract of our prosecutor and our public defender, never cared about their politics. Except for their judges. I don't think their politics should be in the forefront. I like to think of Prosecutor Ritchie as everybody's prosecutor. And I think his argument is compelling. You either make them all partisan or none of them partisan. We can legally do that. And it's important to people to know which way people tilt politically. It's awfully easy to find that out with the internet today. So I just think this is just being consistent. I think it's a positive statement to our community that our judicial votes are nonpartisan, and I think this is a no-brainer. That's just being kind of a shell guy, so.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we send this to the citizens to vote on, let them decide.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion? Commissioner Chadwick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just ask Prosecutor Ritchie, I know we had his letter, I don't have it in front of me, I know it was submitted several meetings ago, but I think it would benefit the public to hear from our prosecutor about, I understand, the brief explanation of not being partisan. It is supposed to be an independent office that serves all citizens of Whatcom County and provides justice to everyone. But again, if you could just reiterate the rationale that you put forward for the benefit of the public and the commissioners that may have not had the opportunity to read that, we would appreciate that.
Sure, if you'd like, I can just read into the record my short letter. And that is that I respectfully request the Charter Commission consider the conversion of the position of Whatcom County Prosecuting Attorney from a partisan to nonpartisan office. The primary responsibility of the prosecuting attorney is to serve the community by seeking justice free from the influence of political party agendas. In its current partisan form, the position risks the perception of bias, which undermines public trust in the fairness and integrity of the justice system. The nonpartisan office would bolster confidence in the impartiality of the prosecuting attorney's role. Notably, all policymaking offices within Whatcom County, such as the county council, the county executive, and the county charter commissioners, already operate on a nonpartisan basis. Additionally, positions such as sheriff, assessor, treasurer, auditor, and the judges are also nonpartisan. With this in mind, it is consistent with the values of fairness and impartiality. Consider extending the principle to the office of prosecuting attorney. The Washington State Attorney General's opinion in AGO 2015 number 6 confirmed that a home rule charter county has the authority to convert the prosecuting attorney's position from partisan to nonpartisan. Since that opinion was issued, 5 of the 7 home rule charter counties in Washington have made the shift. It's like Snohomish and King counties transitioned to nonpartisan in 2016, followed by Clallam County in 2020, Pierce in 2021, and Clark in 2022. This time I asked that Whatcom County address this issue.
Thank you. And it's helpful to have that reminder. And I will say also as a reminder that the presentation section of our agenda is on the executive article. So I'd ask that this does not become a Q&A as we're short on time, but happy to honor any other discussion or questions. I saw Commissioner Redding and then Commissioner Mitchell.
Yes, and in the minutes that we just adopted, it says that this would come back at this meeting in a modified form that would include the motion that I made to have this take effect at the next regular election in 2026, but I'm not seeing this here in our packet. Could you explain?
I don't have a problem. It's a minor issue to me. I know it's important to you. If that's a deal killer, that would be an amendment you could make to make.
So I shall make that amendment now again, like I did last time.
I'll second it.
Okay. Can you restate the motion?
Yeah, the motion is to amend the proposal for it to take effect only in the next regular electoral cycle, which I believe is 2026. So it would explicitly not apply in the case of resignation.
The next
Or any
election
other.
cycle, excuse me,
Yeah.
2026. Okay. And that was second by Commissioner Retschler? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Ellenboss.
Yes, in light of the comments made by our prosecutor and the suggestion and what his juxtaposing on this issue is, I would remind the public, if I'm not mistaken, there are 39 counties in the state of Washington. And in 31 or 32 of them, all the offices are partisan. So maybe he's just wanting to bring us back in line. Maybe he's not just throwing that out lightly, I don't know. But it's, we shouldn't just assume that the proposal before us is the only one we might maybe consider, I'm not gonna be the one to make the motion. But I would certainly support the idea of going back to a partisan. Going back to partisan on all the elected offices.
Thank you. So we have an amendment proposal, a motion to amend Mr. Mutchler's motion, that proposal number 6 take effect on the next election of 2026.
Regular, yeah.
The next regular election, 2026. Commissioner Chadwick.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Redding, just for clarification, you said it wouldn't apply to, say our prosecutor resigned before the end of his term.
Right.
His replacement would still be assigned by the Democratic Party?
Well, that's what the Constitution says, and it's my belief that that is underlying what's going on here. As I said at the last meeting, it's widespread. It's been repeated in widespread fashion that the prosecutor has an interest in possibly resigning before the end of his term, and that he would like to be able to have a favored deputy prosecutor put in the position of incumbency prior to the next regular election. And I'm somebody who believes very strongly that I don't like these kinds of political maneuvers. I think it's very important that people come to an election on an even basis rather than with being favored by having gotten an appointment ahead of that. And so I think this is very connected to that.
Seeing
so
that
that's my concern.
Thank you. Seeing that we're almost at time on this issue, I saw Commissioner Mutchler. I'd ask for a statement in favor, a statement against, and please if we can keep them brief.
Can we ask just a quick question of Mr. Ritchie?
Mr. Mutchler, do you want to go ahead and then I'll.
I'm just saying, you may or may not be in favor of the main amendment, but the main motion on the table. But this is a good, whether you're for or against, this is a good thing to do, clean it up.
Okay.
I think it's like a one word
Go ahead.
answer.
Yeah.
Do you have any opposition to it, this going through with the timeline? Does that change anything for you?
No.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. Please, so the motion before us is to amend the previous motion so that the proposal number 6 takes effect on the next regular election in 2026. Staff, will you please call the roll? Yes.
Joe Ellenboss. Joe.
Abstain.
Lindsay Ellenboss.
Yes.
Colton Coltonfeld.
Yes.
Brad Kelly.
No.
Maya Morales.
Yes.
John Mutchler.
Yes.
Anna Ordos.
Can you come back to me?
Joel Pitts Jordan.
Yes.
Andrew Redding.
Yes.
Jessica Rainstrut.
Yes.
Rod Stump.
No.
Jennifer Wright.
Yes.
Doug Chadwick.
Yes.
Eamon Collins.
Yes.
Hannah Ordos.
Anna Ordos.
Yes.
And that passes 12 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstain. And so now we'll go back to the main motion on the table, which is to send amendment proposal 6 as just amended to make the prosecuting attorney a nonpartisan office effective on the next regular election, 2026. Further discussion, would like to prioritize commissioners who haven't had a chance to speak yet on this. Commissioner Kelly.
Yeah, I'm gonna be voting against this amendment. If Mr. Ritchie wants to separate himself from parties, he can easily just mark himself as independent and run as that. I think it does help voters to know what side of your worldview you're on as a prosecutor. Are you for putting criminals over victims, or are you going to go with the rule of law, stuff like that? And so that's why I'm voting against this.
Comment, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will also be voting no and recognize that there are many perspectives on this issue and certainly appreciate the intent of the amendment. That being said, I can think of very few offices at the local level in any county that impact people's lives so profoundly and so personally as the county prosecutor. And for me, I do believe that voters do deserve as much information as possible when making that determination for that office. So I will be voting no, but again, recognize that there are many different perspectives on this issue.
Commissioner Metzler.
I'd like to remind the commissioners that we're asking you to send this to voters. I suspect that this is a struggle for some, we'll take a vote on it, and if it is a struggle, let's let the voters of the county decide. And I will support you, of course.
Thank you. Any further comments? Commissioner Redding.
Yeah, in spite of making that amendment, I'm going to be voting no on this, and for many of the reasons that we already have heard around the table. But in addition to that, I just don't think that this is something that makes a huge difference in practice. And I don't think we should be sending a lot of amendments to the public. We shouldn't be sending too many amendments to the public. We should limit it to things that really make a difference. And I honestly don't think this fits that level.
Okay. Steph, will you please call the roll?
Walt Elmas,
No.
Lindsay Elmas,
No.
Colton Coltonfeld,
Can you come back to me?
Brad Kelly,
No.
Maya Morales,
Original motion. The motion, sorry, excuse me. The motion is to send amendment proposal 6 to make the prosecuting attorney a nonpartisan office effective on the next regular election in 2026.
I'll vote no.
John Metzler,
Yes.
Anna Ortiz,
No.
Joel Fitzgerald.
No.
Andrew Redding,
No.
Jessica Rienstra,
No.
Brad Stump,
No.
Jennifer Wright,
No.
Doug Chadwick,
No.
Eamon Collins,
No.
Liz Darrow,
No.
and Colton Coltonfeld.
No.
And that motion fails 14-1. Okay. So seeing that we've moved our agenda around just a little bit, I would like to ask that we move into the charter section discussion prior to our break, so we're not heavily weighed on the other side. And then the way that since this is only our second time doing this, I'll just remind, we'd like to welcome Executive Satpal Sidhu for up to 20 minutes of presentation. And then we have up to 15 minutes for a question and answer. And then we will go ahead and take our break. And I was gonna ask that Vice Chair help me with timekeeping because it gets a little bit complicated. But in the Q&A, I would love for questions to be no longer than a minute and answers to be no longer than 2 minutes. And that way we can make sure everyone has a chance to weigh in. So I want to welcome our County Executive, Mr. Sidhu. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioners, for giving me this opportunity to come and speak with you. And for everybody's benefit, I did receive 8 or 8 questions in advance to prepare for this session, and which I have answered, and I transmitted that via email today to all the commissioners. I will not go too much detail into those, but I do have some comments and suggestions. One thing I was not clear that does it prerogative for elected official like council members or executive to put some amendments in front of this commission? Or is there another formal way to do that? Or maybe I'm way too late to do that. So, but I do have very specific suggestions for this commission to consider as amendment to the charter. So just for the benefit of the public, I'll quickly read the questions and my answers. The first one was, does the charter functions well in terms of balance of powers between council and county executive? My answer is yes. Does the charter permit the proper and functional separation of these powers? Yes. Are there any powers not provided by the charter to the executive that he or she has? No. Are there any executive powers given by the charter that should be limited or removed? No. Are there any council powers that should be increased or decreased? Yes. The requirement for the council to have 7-0 votes to propose amendment to the county charter is too high a barrier. It essentially gives veto to one single council member. I will address this in more detail later. The next question, I kind of switched it, this 6 and 7. If you could make 3 changes to the charter, what would they be? I will come to that. The last question was, do you feel about the executive's term limits? I think that my answer is 3 term limits was approved in 2015 with the support of nearly 70% of the voters. And this is very clearly showing where the public stand, and I agree with that. Now, coming back to some of my proposals and some of my comments. The first one is, which I'm proposing, the charter is too prescriptive in its requirement for the Whatcom Medical Society to approve applicants for medical examiner position. However, the Whatcom Medical Society has transformed since this was instituted probably 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, into Northwest Washington Medical Society, which is partnership of Whatcom and San Juan County professionals. So this provision has lived its life. I propose an amendment should be made to assign this oversight to a majority vote of the Public Health Advisory Board, which consists of many medical professionals and citizens involved in the public health issues. That's my first point. Number 2, as I see it, the county charter is not an operational policy document. It is rather a governance document, and there is a subtle difference between the two. The county charter prescribes the powers of the council to enact operational policies, pass new and revise previous ordinances, and revise the county codes as appropriate. The operational policies are more likely to change with economic conditions, public safety, political environment, and other situations needing to preserve the well-being of the community from time to time. These are relatively short-term responses to situational sentiments of the voters on different subjects. The charter represents a long-term guidance for governance of directives for stability of the governing principles, equity for all voters, and separation of powers among elected positions. So I propose following amendments. The first one, I took Article 8, Charter Review and Amendments. Section 8.22. The amendment by the public. The charter shall not be, my comment is, the charter shall not be easy to change. We all know about the Constitution of the United States.
Yes.
The charter should not be easy to change, but at the same time, it should not be difficult to change. So the Charter Commission must strike that balance. The charter amendments shall be based on the wishes of citizens from all areas of the county, rather than a small segment of voters in a densely populated area. That's what is happening right now. So I'm suggesting an amendment or proposing an amendment to section 8.22. I didn't write the whole paragraph, but I highlighted. The public may propose amendment to the charter by registering with the auditor an initiative position bearing the signatures of the registered voters in this is the addition I'm asking, in each county district. So what happens that Bellingham, I'll be just very open with you, even in few neighborhoods in Bellingham have an issue, they collect signatures in that, and the rest of the county is not aware of what the issues are, what its benefits or positive or negatives are, and people find out after it gets on the ballot.
And then people scramble, "Oh, what is this about?" And I live in the county, I have seen that many times. I think that the onus should be on the petitioners when they want to change the constitution of Whatcom County, that they should inform all the districts. And that signature gathering should be in all 5 districts of the county, rather than just one small segment of the people. So that's the first amendment. So I wrote here, the amendment shall ensure that any charter amendment proposals are based on wishes of voters from all areas of the county, not sentiments of a small group of voters in one specific area. As we all know, such actions are debatable and usually lead to a divisive turn among people of opposing views. In addition, the whole process costs a lot of public tax dollars and consumes precious time by the county officials and the citizens. Voters in all areas of the county are not able to learn details about such measures except a few densely populated areas. When the measure is put on the ballot, and it creates a big time confusion and discussion sets in before the November election. It is in the best interest of all voters that the signature collection effort shall be spread across the county to allow extensive awareness of amendment proposals before any amendment becomes eligible to be put on the ballot. The current provision makes it Bellingham-centric. In the past 20 years, Linden and Ferndale have grown to be significant population centers. And Birch Bay is the 3rd largest population center in our county with 9,000 residents. So that must be given due consideration. The next, my proposal is section 8.23, the amendment to the county council. Amendments by the county council. I propose the following amendments to this section. I didn't write the whole thing. A super majority of 5 of the 7 of affirmative votes of the entire membership shall be required to enact such an ordinance. Right now, if there is a new ordinance, 5 council members can put it on the ballot. But there was an exception carved out in the last charter commission, which reads, except that if a previous charter amendment was approved by 2/3 majority of the voters, then no ordinance proposing to the voters further amendment of that matter shall be adopted except by 7-0 affirmative vote of the council. That was carved out specially, and I was a council member during the last charter commission, so I attended a lot of meetings. So the next paragraph reads, the county council, and it reads like this, by unanimous vote of the entire council, I propose a supermajority vote of 5 of the 7 may affect amendments to the language of the charter where the passage of time has rendered language moot or obsolete. It is true that in the fast changing world and of our critical economic environment, many things which have been enshrined in our charter have lost its significance or its meaningfulness to our current government system. And this is a very important thing that provided in our charter, that if the council feels that there are some languages in our thing and they have rendered obsolete, they should be changed with 5 to 7 majority. So it was written, as written now, in the last amendment was by the unanimous vote. 7-0 vote in a council on these kind of matters is very difficult. So you practically give one person a veto power. Okay, so that's my page here. The exception that if a previous charter amendment, so what is so special that if this charter does something today, the next charter coming behind you 10 years later should be bound by what decisions you made. So I think that each charter should have the full powers when they are elected to this task of amending the charter. There should not be extra burden put on the future commissions of future charter commissions. Okay. Okay, so that was my second thing. The third thing is on the Article 5 public interest. There are several amendments which are connected to this whole chapter as following. So I have 2 or 3 different things, and I have outlined in my write-up separately. The first section is 5.40, the initiative process. Again, it's the same principle that charter should not be made very easy to change. It entices smaller group of like-minded people to put their stamp on the rest of the voters. So there must be a threshold. Even changing the, we just talked about from governor's race to county executive's race. We all know that in governor's race, there is a higher number of voters who vote as compared to the county executive. So if we lower that threshold or change that, then we are actually watering down the next initiative or amendments. And that entices, puts smaller people's will on the rest of the people, because we must know we spend your tax money when something is easily put on the amendment or on the ballot. It's the public time, county officials' time, and the public and debate and divisiveness. All these result in that. So we must try to, like we just said, that this is not worth putting publics through it. Just recently, this question talked about that this is not worth bothering people with that. Same thing. A lot of issues are not worth bothering people unless they are collected from all the districts and they meet a certain threshold. But it should not be high that no initiative should be done. So this is what I'm suggesting. The petitioner has 120 days to collect the signatures of the registered voters in the county equal in number to not less than, it says 8, I'm proposing 15% of the vote cast in the county's last regular, I just left it county executive election because that's what it is there now. So I didn't want to put too much. But and another thing, I would like to suggest that we should add 10% of votes must be from each county district. You cannot collect all 15 or 8%. You can collect 8% from one district and put the whole county through it. So my proposal is it should be, threshold should be 15%. Out of that, at least 10% votes should be from each district. Okay, as stated above, most of such issues are debatable and divisive, cause much confusion among the voters in different areas of the county. Many times, small groups of specific political ideology hijack the issue and put the whole county residents through a divisive campaign, costing precious tax dollars and time of the county officials. The current provision creates special advantage for petitioners to focus on a small densely populated areas while ignoring to include voters in the process from all districts. The onus shall be on the petitioner to inform and persuade voters that the proposed change is in the best interest of voters from all areas of the county before it is put on the ballot. This will save a lot of public tax dollars, precious time of public officials, and time of the public. In addition to this, it will create more equity among all county voters and avoid divisive campaigns. It is a common knowledge the signature gatherers use exaggerated claims on the benefits of the initiative or referendum. I propose that the proponent of initiative or referendum should submit an additional narrative statement under 250 words with the current provision of the official statement. The official statement is only whatever the word limitation is, the title of the ballot measure. That title is always only the people who are into politics. They only can read into that. The common person reading those 5 lines is not able to make it what it is about. So if, to convince people, if there's a statement which is submitted to the auditor and each signature gathered should have that statement with them when they asking people to sign a petition. So that the public, this is not for the benefit of a small group of people to change the charter. It is our constitution is for betterment of whole community and all the voters. And I'm urging this commission to keep this in mind. So the signature gatherers should have a statement rather than making claims, oh, you know, this will take away all the taxes away. It will do this to you. Those are very short statements. They are usually not true or the half truth. There should be a statement written by the petitioner, approved by the auditor. And that should be the way to persuade voters to sign on this so that it should be put on the ballot. Okay, I just already said that changing the benchmark from governor's race to county executive race is another way to dilute and make it more easier for smaller groups to make initiatives or changes. The next one is mini initiative, section 5.41. I propose the following section. Bearing the signature of qualified voters equal in number to no less than, say, 3%. Can you imagine 3% to change something? And could be just from one precinct or 2 precincts and change the meaning of our constitution for whole county. I think it's not fair. It should be raised to at least 8% because in many initiative, there is limitations on it already what it can do. So I would suggest or propose the commission to consider 8%. The next is on referendum. Section 5.50, referendum procedure. So I write in here, to collect the signatures of registered voters of the county equal in number to not less than 15% instead of the current wording is 8%.
1 minute to go.
1 minute to go?
Yeah.
Okay, I am on my last page also. So I would suggest, propose that it should be changed to 15% instead of 8. Okay, that is, I will stop here. I had some comments. You have gotten my written comments, so.
Thank you so much. And I'll,
access to that. So I will be happy to answer any.
great. And just so the public knows, that whole presentation will be a part of on the website. So if you want to go back and read through it more carefully, you'll be able to do that. And now I would open up for questions, keeping those questions to 1 minute each, please. Commissioner Morales has a quick comment. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to speak to a few things raised in your presentation that I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
When people bring an initiative out and gather signatures, those petitions have to have the full initiative printed on the back of each petition. So that entire initiative text has to be presented to each person who signs. That's part of our laws. So just so folks know, the clarity is already there. I also just wanted to note that you raised the issue of like an undue veto power in terms of the council. I want to just sort of reflect that if we were to set a ballot initiative requirement for particular regions, would we not then be in effect giving particular regions veto power on a majority of voters' decisions over the county-wide?
Let's do one at a time because then I'm gonna lose.
Well, those are really comments, not
asking me
questions, but I just wanted to kind of clarify one thing for voters and then also for them.
Yeah. First on the signature gatherers, I think everybody present here, we have seen that how half-truths are told to people. People come back and tell us, this is what I was told, that's why I signed it. I think this is a reform we all owe to our voters. This is not about, and that statement, which is there, I think it can be made better. That's what I'm suggesting. Normally, nobody, those things are photocopied, only one side, and the back side is not photocopied. It should, if this commission makes that signature gatherer should have a statement on a separate page and this thing, and they must be presented to the signatory that here is the statement, not making their own statements. They say, this is the statement, I want you to sign this. That should be the limitation, rather than making made up claims for everybody. I think that's, the second question was,
It sounds like it was a comment, not a question.
okay.
I guess it's a little bit of both, just
Okay.
addressing the veto power issue and requiring a percentage from each.
Yeah, I still feel that it's a veto power when you do 7-0. You can't have any, this commission cannot have all 15 votes to put it on the ballot. That's what it is. It's a 7-0 vote for the council to put anything on it. The council needs 7-0 vote.
Right, I was arguing that wouldn't that be the case in terms of arguing that if people are gathering signatures for a ballot initiative, that there be a certain percentage required for each district, then you would be giving one or two districts veto power over what a majority of citizens across the county wanted. It would be a very similar argument is what I was asking.
Yes, but it is lower percentage. Second thing is, yes, that's the whole purpose. But council, which is already elected by people, they're 7-0, and they have 5-2 majority, should be given some consideration because they have been elected by everybody and sent there. We have a representative government.
Thank you. Commissioner Muchler.
I'm Mr. Thank you for being here. And I think most of the questions once I came up with in my noodle for you, they're well answered. The supermajority 7-0 county council, it's not for all amendments to the charter. It's narrow to the area of their elections, the election of the county council. So it's not, it's 7-0 for that one area, but not for everything.
No, it is. It is that anything which was passed by the last charter commission, to amend that, it should be a 7-0 vote. I was not able to copy the whole thing. I would suggest that please read it. Yes, they're 2.13 and 2.12. They require, that have always been there, 7-0 vote. But additional restrictions are put on the council.
Love to see it.
Yes, please read it.
Commissioner Pitts Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Thank you for setting amendments for consideration. I think one of the questions that I had was around, actually not in Article 3, but in Article 1, it talks about the executive working with the legislative or the council on performance management and strategic planning. I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit, and particularly when thinking about whether or not there are any structural barriers to how the county government is analyzing its service delivery to county residents.
Can you please explain?
So
what you're trying to
So when we think about performance management, thank you. Specifically looking at section 1.51. Which specifically states that the executive and legislative branches shall engage in long-term strategic planning and establish organizational structure, priorities, and performance measurements. I'm just curious about how the executive and the legislative branch have typically gone about engaging with the public on those performance measurements, engaging with employees, taking a data-driven approach, just thinking in terms of the structural aspect of the
job. I haven't seen any problem with this and working with the council, and council does have an overall oversight, but for the government to function, the administrative function must have some independence. And that is well defined, and I have not found in 5 years, and I was 5 years on the council, so being on both sides, I did not find that it was an issue.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly?
Thank you for being here. So I've, heard on the news and everything about the budget shortfalls that Whatcom
Yes.
County has had.
Yes.
So how much money does Whatcom County have, and how much money does it take for essential services versus non-essential?
Okay.
I'm not
No,
asking for
I
exact numbers,
understand, I
just
understand, you
overall.
want in generic terms. First thing is, the counties cannot have a deficit budget. It means we must secure the revenue sources, whatever we plan to spend. That is a condition on the county governments, that we must identify all the sources of revenue before we make our spending plan. So when you say how much money do we have? The money do we have is by way of our reserves. There is a statute or the conditions that county must keep, now I'm talking in general terms, right? County must keep about 60 days of working capital, like we say for the business, right? And that we have reserves. We have, I would say, 30, 40 different funds, because the money we collect from the public, it doesn't go in one pot. There are a lot of several pots of money, and they have been defined how and where that money can be spent. So, for example, road fund. Within the road fund, we collect the tax for the road fund, it can be used only, and within the road fund, it is defined what are those things it can do or cannot do, right? So if there is more money in that fund, it doesn't help the general fund where we pay wages from, right? So when your question, how much money county has, we have enough money to maintain our limitations of 60 days, but the budgets are shrinking. You have seen that there means less construction activity because of some of the policies from last 40 years, no growth hasn't happening, and that's met with us now, and we are seeing the effects of last 40 years of those policies, and the houses are 750,000, and even with the money, you can find one to buy one.
Thank you so much. Other commissioners with questions? Oh,
yes,
Commissioner Collins. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Jessica. Did you have Commissioner Winster? Okay, go ahead.
I asked this of council members Scanlon and Strumler when they were here too. There's a provision in the charter that council members shall not direct staff. And while I know there's a positive working relationship there, that seems to me like a significant barrier to their capacity to be a co-equal branch. And I wondered if you could just share your thoughts on whether that is a barrier, of how you feel council members are able to get the information and advice that they need from staff who technically.
Yes, so the protocol is the council members cannot direct the staff, cannot go to the staff. In strict terms, if they need information staff, they should come to the executive, and executive will direct the staff to do that. It's too long a process. They send me an email, I send it to them. So we have, as tradition, we have agreed that they can reach out to the department heads, not every staffer, but we are relaxed on that as well. But they must copy executive's office. So if they have a question to any public works, right? They can go to public works, the director, we need this information, but I am copied on that. Then we know, we are in the know what is done. And the other part is they have the overall power to demand information from us. There is no limitation. But for them to come and direct the staff or direct the actual way the administration works is limited. And there is a purpose for that. It will be chaos if people will 7 + 1, 8 bosses.
Thank you. Other questions from commissioners? I do see we have a community member with a question. I'd ask that you cover
Yeah,
that.
I will be happy to
I was gonna
answer
say, I'd
any
ask that you would cover that during our break, since it's not, we're not having that much time left in our session. If there are no more questions from commissioners, I would suggest that we take a break and reconvene at 7:50.
I would like to just add one. This is not the only time you can ask me questions. I'm available to anybody and citizens. Write me an email, you'll get an answer. And that I promise. Thank you very much for
Thank you
giving
so
me the
much for
opportunity.
being here. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time. And please, everyone, enjoy your break, have some coffee and cookies. Thanks so much to Commissioner Ellenboss for making that happen. And we'll be back here at 7:50.
I have to clarify.
Nope, we're taking turns. Yeah, yeah. Very distracting.
Great job.
Yeah.
That is the French version. Yeah. I don't know whether they're
Fantastic.
But I want to say, I don't know if they did, there was a little, maybe in the luncheon, when I would go to places they don't care, because they don't think anybody cares anymore, CMAS or whatever, so I thank you for doing this. So,
Appreciate it.
I do.
For coming. I don't want to surprise you. Okay. Call this meeting back to order
Good to see you.
at 7:53. Okay. And I'd like to just state for the record that Commissioner Stump is excused for the remainder of the meeting.
Oh, who was your?
Commissioner Stump is excused for the rest of the meeting, and we got some folks. It's a little bit challenging. You got it, you got
Yeah.
And just as a point of professionalism, I want to remind commissioners, please do not assign motives in your questions or statements to others. We're gonna move now.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Oh, just a reminder to not assign motives to folks when you're asking questions or making statements, sticking to facts and questions rather than, thank you for that. Okay, so we have one more item from old business, and that's amendment proposal 10 from Commissioner Redding to replace the salary commission and establish a fixed schedule of elected official salaries automatically adjusted for the cost of living. So let's see, on that one, we're gonna go to in-person public comment on that. Anyone here who's wishing to speak? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor Priest, Whatcom County Prosecutor. I've been involved in a number of salary commission meetings over the years. And I sent you a letter asking that you reject this amendment. And I also sent you some of the documents that I provided to the salary commission this year. And again, I do participate in these things. I do it every 2 years. The salary commission considers a lot of information. They spend a lot of time determining what a salary should be. They do it by looking at the role of the individuals. They do it by considering the comparable information throughout the rest of the state of Washington. And they also use data when they're doing that comparability analysis. Data is really important. And Mr. Redding has provided this proposal. And I have to tell you that the data that he used to look at my office is mistaken. And I don't blame Mr. Redding for it. It's difficult to gather this data. The data is, it's part of websites that counties have put together, but it's still inaccurate. I've outlined how that is true in the information that I've provided all of you. I want to step to another area. I want to talk about the guardrails that Mr. Redding suggested, and that is the governor's office. It's the highest salary in the state, something that nobody should go beyond. And I don't know, I doubt that all of you have been involved in what goes into the governor's salary. I'll tell you that I was present at the last, this year's salary commission meetings for the state of Washington, and looked at all of the salaries and how they were decided, and I can tell you that it was a huge political event. It's difficult for elected officials to step up and talk about their salaries because of, boy, it hurts them in the polls later. So that's why the governor and the attorney general don't go to those meetings, and that's why those salaries are as low as they are. It's unfortunate. It's about politics. Shouldn't be that way. As you all know, the governor should be probably paid the highest in the state of Washington, but that's not what's going on. And there's also another consideration for you, and I doubt that you all know what the benefits are that the governor is receiving. And there are significant benefits, and we're talking about not only housing and servants and cars, food, all sorts of things like that. But there are other things that I guess I'll add security as well. And these are things that go into the salary of the governor. So that's a guardrail that's difficult to really emulate and say no other person should go above that. what Commissioner Redding is suggesting, and again, I've only looked at the data for my office. It's difficult to look at everyone's offices. And if you were all gonna take the place of the salary commission, I'd suggest that you all hear from each of the elected officials. I'd suggest that you all spend time looking at the roles and determining what kind of comparability should be considered, and of course the data. But what this amendment will do would set the prosecutor's position at one of the lowest in the state of Washington. And I don't know that Whatcom County deserves that. That's not something that Whatcom County should be doing, considering the placement of Whatcom County as being the 9th largest in the state of Washington. I think I just wanted to mention what Commissioner Joel Pitts Jordan stated. The Whatcom County prosecutor is someone that's, I guess, a position that's important within this community and touches many people. With that said, again, ask that you reject Amendment 10.
Thank you. Any further comments? Commissioner Redding, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure. I'd like to begin by mentioning in response to the statement by the prosecutor that the spreadsheet is wrong, that I asked Kirsten to actually go and double check the figures that were questioned. And Kirsten, can you tell us what you found?
I'd rather that you do it.
Okay, well, Kirsten responded that actually, upon double checking, they are actually correct as of now, all of the figures you see in that. Also, the statement just made that we are one of the lowest in pay is incorrect, and is actually exactly the opposite of that. We are pretty near the highest. In fact, we're the second highest in many cases after King County, which is 10 times our size. In the statement to you, the county executive said, my suggestion is don't fix what is not broken. That's in quotes. And I would submit to you that that's coming from a person who sits in an office that is about to go to next year to a salary of over $250,000 a year, over $300,000 when you consider the benefits that go with that. And that is, as you can see in that spreadsheet there, a higher amount than is paid to other county executives, even in counties 3.6 times or 4 times the size of ours in terms of population. So these are very drastic things to talk about. And it's also in terms of the prosecutor gets paid well more than the state attorney general as well. And the state attorney general does not have tons of security and so forth, to the best of my knowledge. But in any event, the important thing is that that neither with by comparison with state offices, nor by comparison with any of the other county offices, does any of this make any kind of real sense, I would argue. And it's not a very good use of public funds when a county that is the 9th biggest is paying more in many cases than counties that are the second or third or fourth biggest, and are many times our size in population. What I'm proposing here, and I'm also proposing, that we need to get rid of the salary commission, because it's the salary commission that has given us this mess. And so I do think the system is broken, and it's very much broken, and that's why this proposal. And I believe only by setting up a system that is not subject to what I would call lobbying. I don't think it's proper for office holders to be effectively lobbying a salary commission, which is exactly what has happened here. And so, and you can see that as well. We got the submission from the prosecutor, which on the one hand says we should keep the salary commission, but on the other hand, it says that the salary commission did him wrong and that he's owed $7,111 and is asking to be paid that amount. And so you can't hit it both ways. The salary commission, you can't argue that the salary commission is making mistakes and at the same time that we should keep it. And I would argue that it's made a ton of mistakes here and that some of these are structural in nature. It's just in the very nature. If you have a bunch of people who are in a committee and then you have people come and make their cases to them, then that's going to happen. You get this kind of salary inflation. I'm getting so I can't speak for some reason. There's not enough water in me to speak. So yeah, so what I'm proposing here is something that would lead to annual adjustments for inflation, and that would happen automatically. You wouldn't have to have a citizen salary commission do it. Excuse me for a second. Thank you so much. That's so much better. But it would happen automatically every year, and it would be the same increase that people who are minimum wage get, same increase that people who are on Social Security get, and it would be automatic. And so you would not be having this constant inflation that happens where, you know, I guess the median, the average wage in this county is about $59,000. We should be thinking about the people who are paying for all of this. And, you know, part of what's happened in politics recently has been a sense that the people in power are not relating so much anymore to the rest of the public and are kind of developing into a kind of elite and all at the public expense. We're not a rich county. We should not be paying more than counties that have 3.6 or 4 times our population. So that's the basic gist behind this proposal. Now the proposal, you should be aware that the Constitution does not allow, and thanks to Kellen for this, does not allow any diminishing, that's the word it uses there, of an elected official's salary for their term of office. And he also explained to me that that means as well that when a salary commission has already determined things for future years, and so they've already determined what happens on July 1st of this year, and not only that, but July 1st of next year, all of that we can't change. We can't put that on the ballot to the people. We can't change any of that. So the most we can, there's a lot of increase built in already that's going to happen this year and then next year. And so the most we can do to bring this under control is to basically put a pause on this. And this is what this would do. It would put a pause. And so nobody would get a cut in pay in their existing office. It's true that, you know, if they run for re-election, or anybody running for election would come in at the new level. But keep in mind that that new level is also going to be adjusted every year for inflation. So by the time this even catches up, because we're not allowed to do anything before that would take effect before July 1st of 2027 in effect, I think. Yeah, 2027. By then, some of this will have caught up in terms of inflation. But the only way that we can put any control on this finally is to have this kind of leveling and make it so that there will only be increases for inflation once they reach this standard.
Thank you. In the interest of time, would you like to make a motion?
In order to allow for discussion,
Exactly.
Yes, I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, and just to flesh that a little more, a motion to adopt proposed amendment 10. That'll give us a little more information to go on. Commissioner Ellenboss.
Yes, Madam Chair, balance of the body, it was 48 years ago that as a young man, I sat as part of the Board of Freeholders and we discussed this as a very important concept. We had 3 sitting county commissioners who had a set pay. And we had a set of provision create a means by which those people, if the charter were approved, would become part-time council members instead of full-time commissioners. And depending, they had a choice. Believe me, there was only one of them that went the route of making the choice so he could get the full pay. The rest of them made a choice and they dropped to the same pay as a newly elected county council member. So I don't know, and this is part of the basis of why I'm going to make the proposal that I make as it relates to this motion. I'm basically in accord with Andrew's concept here. And I've sat with him and I've looked at the numbers and I've talked with other members as it relates to that. I'm in agreement with it, but there are so many things that we don't know. And how can we render a decision when we don't know? I don't want to see us rush into this and have the same basic mistake that I think we made on the issue last time. My proposal was that we, we create a committee to deal with it. But I think when we're having meetings wherein somebody makes a proposal and submits some data, and even though we get a chance to take a look at the data that's submitted beforehand, we don't necessarily have an opportunity to answer all the questions. For instance, how is specifically, do we all know how the salary commission is appointed? Do we know what influence they have or how they are influenced? And do we have any history of looking at how they rendered those decisions or what they compared it against? That's just one aspect of this that we know nothing about. And so as it relates to this issue, I'm glad it's on the table. I'm generally supportive of portions of it, but not all aspects of it. And as a result, what I would do, and I'm going to ask you for the type of wording you want, but my general concept would be to refer this to a committee of the whole. I've mentioned committees before, but this body seems to be unwilling to do that. We have an agenda, a listing of meetings. There is nothing that says that we can't pick a time within that existing schedule to come up with meetings that do not have any other agenda other than dealing with a specific issue. And so my proposal would be that we have a committee of the whole that works on this particular topic with all parties bringing forth that data that they think is relevant for us to utilize to try and hammer out not only the basis of the proposal of how it will take place, but also to consider those aspects. For instance, now call me crazy, but I know we can't change the current elected officials, but I see no reason why if for instance, we didn't feel that the county exec should get paid more than the governor, then any county exec that runs here on out would have the knowledge that they were running for a salary that was perhaps considerably less than what it is. So that's just showing in one area where I differ from Andrew in taking a particular concept. So, Madam Chair, I would move that we postpone this issue in a manner, or that we table it, whichever way you prefer to deal with it, to a time certain, and that time certain being a committee of the whole where we all have the ability to discuss it, bringing those relevant factors. It wouldn't have to be as long a meeting, I don't think, if that's the reason that we did it. And if the people didn't feel they had any input or didn't want to take part, they wouldn't have to attend. But then that committee of the whole could hammer out a provision that we would submit to the body to flesh out what Commissioner Redding is proposing. I would so move.
Do we have a second? Question being if we need to settle the motion that's before us prior to that, or if that counts as an amendment. This is a parliamentary question. I don't know.
Should we postpone the question on the table to a date certain?
Thank you for your help. And for the body, I just want to clarify that June 26th is the next time that we don't have a predetermined article to discuss. That's after we get through all the articles. Anything we send to the ballot has to be given to staff and attorneys by July 22nd, so they have time to go through that process. So real quick in my head, that means we have 2 meetings with nothing predetermined as the agenda.
Well, we held 3 meetings a week.
Sure, I mean, we could meeting it up, but just saying that
that's
is,
fine.
we do have a little wiggle room there. Just wanted the body to know that looking at the schedule. Commissioner Ordos, did you have your hand up? No. Commissioner Redding, go ahead.
Yeah, first I would point out that I think Joe is suggesting that this does not have to be part of a regular meeting schedule because he used the words committee of the whole. And when city council or county councils meet in committee of the whole, it's not part of the regular meeting. And so I think what he's doing is suggesting a separate meeting just for this purpose as committee of the whole.
Okay.
Just to be explicit about that. I also want to respond to what I thought was a question you asked. It is actually in the current proposal, the case that whoever would be running for county executive if this were adopted the next time round, or even if the current county executive were running for re-election, it would in fact be at a substantially lower salary under this proposal. That's, if you look carefully at what it says, it would be that jump down.
You're starting what we need to do in the committee of the whole.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you that actually isn't there already.
Commissioner Morales.
I'd like to amend your motion, and I'd like to add to that committee of the whole proposal, also the discussion of paying a future salary commission, some type of salary or wage for that service.
I'm perfectly open.
Are you amenable to that? Okay.
That is proposed amendment.
Did
Proposed,
I say salary commission? Yeah. I'm so sorry. I didn't eat my second cookie. I meant, I would like to propose an amendment to add a discussion, which I have an amendment on the table that we've postponed, to also add into that discussion, doesn't necessarily need to be for a vote at that time, but some discussion about salarying or paying in some type of way our future charter review commission.
so I have a motion, sorry.
I'll accept that as a,
Okay.
if my seconder will accept it, I'll accept it as a friendly amendment. And in the hopes that with one additional item that we maybe can find room on the April the 18th or, I'm just picking it, April the 18th or March 30th, or, at some much sooner time than later in the process.
Okay, we do have to postpone to a time certain, so we will need to say what that time is, if that's gonna be the motion. Seeing that we are almost at time for this meeting. I see Commissioner Muchler, go ahead.
I'm going to speak against the amendments and also against the motion. I honestly don't feel that that's the duties of the Charter Commission. The Charter Commission has set up the structure so that county council members and executive are elected. They're the ones that make decisions on budgets, to decide how much we're gonna spend on art, how much we're gonna spend on streets, how much we're gonna spend on salaries. Now, they have chosen through the amendment process to make it a salary commission. But the county council used to make those decisions. They would decide salaries. This might sound odd to you, but when the county council decided the salaries, they were much lower because the county council was closer to the electorate. They were sensitive to elections. I've been voting on salaries for 15 years. And because we answered the voters, when the governing body makes those choices, they tend to be quite less. And so it's doubtful that the salary commission would be good. I would be in favor of going back to county council. You would find lesser salaries. But I also don't think it's our job to get into numbers like this. This could drag on for a long time and not be good use of our time. With all due respect, what you're trying to accomplish, I don't think I'm smart enough to know whether the salary is too high or too low. That's not my job.
we elect people to do that, and those people have decided to use the salary commission, which the voters supported as well in 2011. So I would be voting against the amendments and voting against the eventual main motion when it comes to us.
Okay, and I will say, Commissioner Ellenboss used a couple of different verbs, so I'm gonna try this other one. A motion to refer to committee of the whole, proposed amendments 10 and 11 to be discussed at a date determined by this body, something like that, so we don't all have to hash through our calendars right now.
Would it be better if I said to a time certain to be established by county staff, polling the availability of the body and so setting a date?
It's your motion, sir, that's fine with me.
Is that helpful for everybody?
To a time certain established by county staff after polling the body.
Within what period of time?
Soon.
Soon could be July.
Prior to the 1st of May.
Do within 30 days.
Within- Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, could we do within 30 days or something like
Sure,
that
that's
to kind of
fine.
time limit?
That's a good within 30 days.
Okay. Any further comments, Commissioner Collins?
Yeah, I'm interested in continuing to have this conversation. I think the way that we compensate the elected leaders of our county government is within our purview. I realize that currently we give that to the salary commission. The prosecutor's point that politicians are in a difficult position advocating for their own salaries, and that's why the salary commission is better. I think this structure is superior to that. It takes it out of their hands, it fixes it permanently, it ties it to a metric that I think is very understandable. As a public school teacher who has never made as much as the smallest number on this page, I will have a hard time not voting to lower some salaries, but I'm more interested in just establishing some consistency and predictability. I don't see why the salary commission has any greater expertise. I get that they have a more specific scope, and so maybe they spend more time studying this specifically. But I think pegging it to a fixed number makes a lot of sense. And if the prosecutor specifically needs to be tied to the Superior Court judge, then fine. I support that alignment. But yeah, I'm in favor of exploring this.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellenboss.
2 things. I am also in favor of exploring this further. I think there's more questions I have now than I came into this meeting with. And then for Maya, we moved your amendment to March 27th, so that falls before 30 days. I just want to make sure that's recognized, since you did ask to amend to discuss it at that meeting.
Can I answer that?
Sure. Yeah.
Madam Chair, yeah, that is a great point, Commissioner Ellenboss. I think perhaps what we might do is if the meeting ends up, if we vote to have this committee of the whole, and if that ends up happening before 3/27, great and fine. And if it doesn't, then we could decide at that next meeting what we'd like to do. Does that sound acceptable?
Point of clarification, right now, this motion includes Amendment 11. So I think it has to be either at the March 27th meeting or in this motion, unless you want to make a motion at the next meeting. Does that make sense? Because if we're proposing to refer to committee of the whole, proposed amendments 10 and 11, I guess there could be a discussion on the next meeting. But to me, this discussion includes that amendment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just addressing that by saying that if we happened to schedule this committee of the whole meeting, and if we happen to vote to do that, and that happens before 3/27, then this is a non-issue. If it does become an issue, then we can actually just deal with that as a motion at the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Well, quite frankly, I think the prosecutor would tell you, our assigned counsel would tell you that if this motion passes with your suggestion of being involved in it, that supersedes or modifies whatever other schedule we would have. And so it becomes non-issue.
Okay, so Commissioner Redding.
Would it be outrageous to suggest that, since we're already setting aside Thursdays pretty much, and the intervening Thursdays are not filled, they might be possible on an intervening Thursday and maybe sooner rather than later to not kick the can down the road.
Is this an amendment to the motion?
Well, I'm just trying, is it possible sometimes to just get a show of hands on whether like next Thursday would work or 2 Thursdays, 3 Thursdays away, I mean? No?
Not third Thursday.
Okay.
But I
Try.
don't need to be there.
Yeah.
It's
I
tough
do
with our
too.
calendars, y'all. I gotta say, we got a hard stop at 9 PM, so I'm gonna ask that we seeing Commissioner Muchler and then going to a vote.
So I'm just processing. So we're looking at, I think, 8 elected officials for the next 10 years, that's 80 different salaries, 8 times 10. And part of me says it's really beneath this responsibility, beneath the commission to do this. On the other hand, it's also outside our expertise to do this. I just don't think this is what we're here for, deciding salaries. That's for the county council. So again, I just don't think that's our job.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright.
I was just wondering, it seems like it would be decided by the people, just like the original salary commission was the decision of the people. If we send it to the people, they would be able to decide if they liked it or they didn't. This idea. So to me, it seems like it is putting the power in the hands of the people, especially if we're thoughtful in how we do it.
Thank you. We have an amendment to refer proposed amendments 10 and 11 to be discussed in a committee of the whole at a time certain established by county staff through polling the commission to be scheduled within 30 days. Will you please call the roll?
Holcomb Coltonfeld,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales,
Yes.
John Muchler,
No.
Anna Ordos.
Yes.
Joel Jordan,
Yes.
Andrew Redding,
Yes.
Jessica Riestra,
Yes.
Preston excused, Jennifer Wright,
Yes.
Doug Chadwick,
Yes.
Eamon Collins,
Yes.
Liz Darrow,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss.
Yes.
And Lindsay Ellenboss.
Yes.
And that motion passes 13-1 with 1 excused. Right, and to clarify that supersedes the earlier motion because it's been referred. Okay, so moving on to other business. Are there any other items for discussion from commissioners? Commissioner
I
Ellenboss.
kind of wanted to echo what was said earlier about the traveling meetings. I do find it, I was a big proponent of that and I rallied for that, but now that we're doing it, I'm hearing also a lot of complaints, which I understand because I finally went back and listened to one of our meetings and I had to replay and replay. So I think we should consider just prioritizing that we are in a room that we have the right microphones and that we can actually be heard.
Commissioner Wright.
Madam Chair.
One moment.
I agree. It's unfortunate if people can't hear us at home, and we, I know, as a body have asked for better microphones, and the public is asking us, telling us we can't be heard, but we're asking and asking. So I'm wondering what it would take. Like, I think Commissioner Collins brought up, like, surely there's more than one microphone owned by the county. Can we figure something out so that that can work? I don't know if it's possible or not, but to me, it seems like taking away the ability of the public to come to us because we can't get microphones. To me, that seems like a reasonable expenditure so that people in far reaches of District 3 or District 5, like I teach in Blaine, I've worked here for 20 years. It's like my place. I want to make sure people are able to, that we come to them. And so I feel like we just need to get microphones.
Commissioner Ellen, oh, so, excuse me, Commissioner Ellenboss.
Well, yes, I would come into our county exec and say, sir, you have multiple castles. Is there not one that has a room? And I'm thinking of the one across the plaza from the courthouse beyond the library, where we always met in the basement, that former restaurant. Is that not available to us?
As a matter of process, we're not in this sort of open session Q&A, but I would say, I think to sort this, we could work with staff to find only meeting places where there is some kind of sound system available. It's an access issue. It's unfair to people who have difficulty hearing. So I think we can do that with Kirsten before the next meeting and seeing Commissioner Morales and then Commissioner Ordos.
I would like to just add to that request that, I mean, like when I look at this room, it is so not up to fire code at all, and I don't like it. I would really like us to have, hold these meetings in places where there is ample space and where nobody is, squeezed into a corner and would have to climb over someone else in emergency. That's my request to add to this.
Commissioner Ordos.
I just want to provide my feedback as well. I was a huge proponent of going anywhere and everywhere to be close to the people of Whatcom County and have as much access as possible. After feedback, I'm kind of reconsidering that zealousness about it and then looking at the amazing people that continue to show up. About 2/3 of them are individuals that show up each time, and I'm hoping that if we did move back to a place where we had ample space and it was consistent, that we could still be able to reach out to our districts and encourage people to come in and see us if we make that decision, because I would still rather have us more accessible and closer and cramped, but I want to know where, this isn't ideal, but the 3-4 people that are new here today are also just as important to me as far as involvement, so I'm torn.
Yeah. Commissioner Wright.
It looks to me like there's actually a lot of new people here tonight.
Yes,
And so I just wanted to say, to me, it appears the majority of the people here actually have not come to previous meetings, which I think is an argument for us continuing to hold it in places. And I just will come back to, it is something we continue asking for, and it seems like a solvable problem. Like, do we need a budget request? Like, we could get microphones. Do we need to just have a person track them down? I have a Bluetooth speaker in my classroom. I could ask the district, can we use it for this purpose for the meeting? It seems like a solvable problem.
It sounds like that's something that we can work on. I do want to report that the Nooksack tribe has offered us the use of their community center, which does have a sound system. I don't know if East Whatcom Regional has an adequate sound system. I think that should be one requirement for booking. No, they don't.
It's very small.
We need a microphone per person. That's the
Right.
thing. We need a microphone per person. And
We
so
do
it just
that.
seems like,
I just want to.
seems reasonable.
And I'm not saying to stop traveling, I'm just saying, let's make sure we can be heard.
Yeah.
And make that the priority.
Yes.
And I also want to acknowledge that we have a
This
number of
allows
people
anyone.
raising their hands. I think we could do one more round of public comment since we've got a little space. Could the body indicate consent by saying aye?
Aye.
Okay, great. I saw you first. Go ahead.
I would like to just point out that it is more than just the sound. There are new people and many of them had to stand outside the whole night. So they stood out there for 3 hours, so I would like us to be mindful of that. You get to see new faces, but they're not hearing you very well and they're not able to be in the room. And frankly, I'm not a fan of being blocked in from fire exits. So it is a big issue. So please make sure that that's a part of a space, is us having adequate access out in an emergency. And then people being able to fit in the room the whole time would be great. Thank you.
I want to thank you. I would have sat in my walker, because I think it's really sad to me. I'm so honored that all of you chose, instead of having, and I work on the money to come down here, and I live in London. So for me, Blaine's a little bit, I go by $10. So I want to thank you for acknowledging the we the people. You're gonna get about the same amount of people. I go to a lot of meetings because they care. But I go back and I tell my seniors at the senior center, no, they're coming. They're gonna go to Maple Falls, they'll go out to you. So I want to thank you, whoever came up with that novel approach and setting, you can talk louder. I will work on microphone. I have one at the VFW. If that's all you need is a microphone, I'm pretty loud myself, Charles Haddon Spurgeon poked to a field. So what I'm saying is, I want to thank you for your vision on this, because it's we the people that think you care. I can assure you, I cringe in driving into Bellingham, and I'll tell you why, with cars total, things happening. So I want to thank you, because it does put you in a little more of a leader's position, where you're going to go out and you're going to get in that car, you're going to come to Blaine, bumping up and down the road. So whoever thought of it, I love the idea. So you got to be close. Go around the world. You're just thinking you're close in here. I would have given up my seat. Those people chose to stand. I asked them. So thank you for your vision. Don't give up. Go into the center next week out in the Maple Fall area and just get some microphones. I'll get them for you.
Recognize Executive Sudo.
I was gonna suggest that this is not only the matter of getting a microphone for everybody, it is the feedback, there will be a little more, and how it is being recorded. All those technical things come up when it is only one or two people, it's a little different, you sit very close to each other. So there will be a lot of technical difficulties, I just wanna caution that. And the procurement also, it takes a little time, it's not that we can pick our phone, call Amazon, send me 9 of these. We could do that, but how to match and everything, because the audio system at the council chambers, a lot of technology behind it to make it work. So if it was only 2 or 3 people, it's different. And the audience need to be heard too. So I would just caution them just saying, just getting microphones would solve the problem, we're not sure.
Thank you. I see a hand back there. Go ahead.
Should I come forward or?
Just talk loud.
Okay, I can do that. Just, I wanted to say, the gentleman, Eric, I didn't catch his last name, was speaking about the county and how the conservative population is not being heard, so to speak, or that there needs to be more, a better representation. He brought up ranked choice voting as a means of doing that. I personally think that the ranked choice voting would do the opposite of that, because basically it's confusion. It's what Executive Sadhu was saying. Ranked choice voting causes even more confusion than initiatives do. But there's another very simple means of getting to better representation within the county, and that is one county councilor per district and no at large. Because effectively, we have a situation now where we have 4 county councilors elected by Bellingham. And so there is no chance for it could be that you're right that districts 3 and 5 are moving towards being liberal, but it could also be that there will be a swing. The point is the big city is ruling over all the rest of the county. And that is not a good situation for, if we do truly want democratic and regional representation within the county.
Saw a hand from Mr. Westerfield.
Can I get your first name?
John Mangy, Lane citizen.
Go ahead.
2 things quickly. Well, I do respect Jennifer Commissioner's comment about the fact that there are new faces at each of these. The fact that it moves means that the group of new faces are only going to see 1 meeting. So only a select number of us are going to be crazy enough to travel all over the county and attend the meeting. So again, I think this has to move. The other comment I have is this. This meeting of the whole to discuss amendments 10 and 11. Why is amendment 11 being attached to that as like a rider or something? And is that meeting going to make a decision about these?
Should I answer that? I don't think I'm allowed
Because
to
there's
answer.
not been any comment on proposal amendment proposal 11 yet. So whatever happens between now and then, there will still be discussion of that at another open meeting. Thank you.
Yes, sir. John Westerfield, for those who are keeping track. Okay, good. So our next meeting will be, do we have one more? Oh, sorry, didn't see you.
I was just gonna say, I think over time, people that are concerned about this group of decision makers will start coming to these meetings more frequently. I think you will have a growing group of people. I intend to come anytime I can. So I think you will need larger spaces than this. I think the sound system could be easily handled by anybody who's a musician who has a board and a speaker or some sort of speaker system. It's not that difficult. I mean, we used to set up in the bar, so it's not that hard to have a few mics attached to a speaker system and a board. And I'm surprised that we've had this commission how many times now?
6.
This is the 6th one, and that we haven't provided for that already. I mean, it seems to me that there should be some money set aside to make sure that this runs well and is accessible to the public. And outside of that, I wanted to speak also to the salaries. If I were to run for office, I would be doing it because I'm a concerned citizen and I want to serve my fellow citizens. So I don't think we should all be in this for money, although I think our expenses should not be, this is just my opinion and I want to throw it out there, that our expenses should be covered. That's all.
Thank you. What's your name?
Corinne.
Corinne. Thank you. Okay.
Just real quickly, since we've allowed the room to speak, do we have anybody online? I don't want to forget
Oh,
about
that's a great
anybody
question. Thank you,
might have
Commissioner Ordos.
an online hand up.
Yes. Tyler Bird. Go ahead.
Thank you. There was a question earlier addressed to Executive Sadu regarding council's ability to direct staff. And I was hoping to give some of my feedback to that specific question. So in relation to that, I would say that currently the council's ability to not direct staff, I believe, is 100% the correct structure. If we were to direct staff or have that ability as well, I think it would cause significant confusion. As an example, if the executive asks staff to address an issue in one way, and each council member contacts that same staff member and asks them to address it in a separate way, how does that staff member then determine who or what way they're going to address that? There is a problem, though, with the council having a lack of resources in order to address and gather the information that we have, especially as the county and the population grows. I mean, the number one complaint that you will hear of constituents related to the council is that they have emailed or called us, all of us, and not gotten a response back from any of us. And the unfortunate truth to that is that there isn't enough time for us to contact and to address all of those issues, in addition to all of the information that we have to go through with packets and general meetings. And that's the unfortunate part. But the answer to that isn't to allow us to direct the staff and to then mingle those executive powers and the legislative powers. It's to continue to have the separation there where the executive runs day-to-day operation, oversees the staff of the departments, but that somehow the staff capacity for the council is increased so that the council has the ability to also continue to address issues to manage the workload as the population and the job continues to increase.
Thank you. Are there any other commenters online?
Is there anyone else who would like to speak online? You can raise your virtual hands.
So our next meeting is scheduled to be at the East Whatcom Regional Resource Center in Maple Falls on March 27th. And we'll go ahead and do everything that we can to make this process more accessible to all the folks who are living in Whatcom County and wanting to participate. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second.
I just want to publicly thank the staff for taking, I mean, this was fun, guys. This was the first meeting I really feel I've attended.
Oh. I will say, again, thank you to Commissioner Ellenbus for providing the coffee and cookies. Looking for a volunteer for next time from the commission. So please, if you haven't done it yet, reach out to me. And thank you to Executive Satpal.
You seem to care about the West or we the people. So I'm thank you. That's a great thing about that. And seriously, I don't have it. I think that's gonna be
But there has to be some system for it to keep it in your car. And if you just hear it, we just lose it. I have